This is good. Yeah, we do. Oh, but he was on a mic. You can just. Oh, this. Okay. Big boy voice. Big boy voice. Big boy voice. I'll do this.
Hello, everyone. I cannot make myself go louder into this microphone, so you will need to make me go louder. Right. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. We are so honored to have you here for Left Bank Books presents Katie Lee, The Last Stop. We are very appreciative of all of you coming out and supporting this event. When you support Left Bank Books, your money goes directly into the local economy. It helps keep your parks free, your libraries stocked and full of books that we love as well. And it helps keep the streets paved, the fun things. But today is also Giving Tuesday, and we are in the midst of a fundraiser for our nonprofit, the Left Bank Books Foundation. The Left Bank Books Foundation allows us to put on incredible events like this, but it also funds literacy projects, including our Big Books Project, Literacy and Justice for All, and our River City Readers Projects, which gets books into the hands of St. Louis public school children. So if you were so honored tonight to want to make a donation of literally any amount, if you have a dime in your pocket, we'll take it. If you have an extra $200, we'll take that too. But I want to thank you all so much for supporting us, for supporting our nonprofit, for supporting everything that we try to do to make St. Louis a better place. Give yourself a round of applause. We are almost done with events for the year, but we are so happy to be doing this event. And we also have a couple of story time events going on for some local authors to coincide with the Central West End Window Walk. So this Saturday and the following Saturday, we have a couple of fantastic children's authors. So if you have youngins in your life, you should bring them down, have a good time. And we will be announcing a lot of events next year, so keep an eye on our event calendar. We did just announce, or I think it's been announced, I'm going to tell you about it anyway. Alton Brown will be coming back to St. Louis in April, so that event is on our calendar. Tickets are on sale now, so you can, I'm certain that some of you like food in this audience, and you can get some great food. We are here tonight to celebrate the release of the first chapter, The Last Stop. This is from Katie's forthcoming, as yet untitled, memoir, which will be published one chapter at a time and released in serial format. The restaurant business is one of the hardest businesses in the world. No one would argue with that. To make it as long as they have, to keep building as much as they have, and then to take it out into the world, you need two things: a great team and a great city. I will let Katie, since these are all in your, this is all in your words, so we'll talk about this in just a little bit. But I want to introduce our fantastic guest for the evening. Sarah Fenske is the executive editor at St. Louis Magazine, STLPR Legal Roundtable host, Donnybrook combatant, RIP RFT, seeker of truth, and maker of mischief. We are similar in that matter. Katie Lee, born and raised in St. Louis, Katie Lee left school at 15 and found her education in the heart of the city's restaurant industry here in the Central West End. Working every position from dishwasher to chef to owner, she is the founder of Katie's. Katie Lee lives in St. Louis with her daughter, Nadia. Without further ado, would you all please help me in warmly welcoming our incredible guests for the evening.
All right, does that work? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Since the last time I was here, which was not that long ago, they got these fancy microphones and it's thrown me off. So, but I'm so excited to be here tonight, and I'm really excited to be here with Katie Lee, the author of the first chapter of the book that's launching. And I said, I think with a little hyperbole in the pages of St. Louis Magazine today, that this is the most unusual book launch in St. Louis history, but it might actually be. So Katie, before we dive into this first chapter, tell us why start with the first chapter?
Okay, now I gotta figure this out.
Everybody.
Did I get it? No?
You said it once?
Good? No? Yeah.
Good. Oh, you heard it? Okay. Oh, wait.
We're all used to the fancy microphones.
Oh, it's off. Just,
Oh.
yeah. You got it?
No?
Okay. Y'all are extremely patient. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I get to dodge that first one.
There it is.
Okay.
I hear you.
So why the first chapter? So over the last year, I wrote this body of work, and I come from the restaurant business where we just really like instant gratification and to get things done right away. And I thought about the traditional path that you would take, and you've got to find a publisher, and that can take many years, and hope that they understand it, and that you get maybe the right editor who doesn't want to change it, and all of that. And I just thought, why don't we just put it out there and start getting it out as quickly as possible. And I have a team of people that have kind of creatively workshopped this idea with me. And they said, 100 years ago, that this is how they released books. And it was just it was an inexpensive way for the authors to get their work out and for readers to get access to it. And so they would release in serial publishing. And so we thought about it, and thought it was really interesting and also very effective for getting the work out as quickly as possible. So here we are.
And yet, even though you're only releasing this first chapter today, you have a number of chapters written. You have more chapters than you even want to end up with.
I probably have, am I still on? Yeah. I probably have about 17 right now. I think I'm going to whittle it down to 15. However, I think as the chapters get released, what I like about it is in the restaurant business, you're interacting in real time with the guests.
You get that feedback if people don't like what you just said.
So essentially, I guess the public will become the big bad editor. But no, you get to interact in real time with the table, and it's this flow of energy. And so I think that by the time we get start moving along, another chapter will evolve, or the chapters that I've written, which I really like to do, which is my style, is to rewrite them again a few more times.
Okay.
So even though the body of work is done, there is a real-time effect that will be happening that I just can't help. It's just the nature of, how I work, that I'll be interacting with the people that are reading it and the feedback, and also the time that I have to process maybe something that I wrote a year ago, and it'll come, I'll do a rewrite with today's mindset.
So this first chapter, we're going to hear the beginning of it in just a moment. But I want to just set the table a little bit, because I think this is a terrific first chapter. And I think one of the things that writers, no matter how experienced they are, struggle with is where to begin the story. It's the single hardest thing for any professional writer. So I'm wondering, did you always know this is where the story would begin, that this was your first chapter?
I think it was, this is the first chapter I did officially write. I had many friends who had said, you should write this, tell your story, you should write a book or get a ghostwriter to write a book, because I didn't know that I could actually write a book. So I actually did find a ghostwriter. We talked about this on the phone the other day, a dear friend of mine, and I said, hey, could you help me do this? And she interviewed me a few times, and she said, and I, as she was interviewing me, I said, I do write every day. I journal. It's kind of stream of consciousness. She said, well, send me, if you were to write this first story, send it to me. And I wrote it pretty quickly, sent it to her the next day. And she really
she's obviously a very good friend, said, I think you should write it yourself. This is, very good. So that was, I think, gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had never had that experience of having anyone read anything that I had written. So she gave me a lot of confidence, and the last stop is the actual first thing that I wrote after speaking with her. And then went back and did, 4 or 5, maybe 10 rewrites over, a course of a few months. Yeah.
That's a good and very unusual ghostwriter to talk themselves out of a job. It would have been a pretty plum job.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that you weren't sure you could do this is you haven't been trained as a
No, well, I'm not trained as a writer at all. And also the insecurity of dropping out of high school and really dropping out of high school. I mean, the years prior to me dropping out, I wasn't even participating. So I really feel like I probably have like a 13-year-old education, traditional one, and then did not go to any college or anything like that. So, yeah, thank God for, spell check.
Well, I think it's not on the spell check in this chapter. I think without further ado, I'd love for you to read us the beginning of this chapter.
But yeah, so my style is different because of that, and it is kind of screw punches. Okay, here we go. So, has anyone read it?
Yeah.
Okay. The beautiful artwork. Okay. Through the front door, plastic grocery bag in hand, waterproof. Inside, all I have left. Outside, everything gone. A few changes of clothes and a pack of cigarettes. The rest, lost, sold, or taken. April 11th, 2011. I'm dropped off at a halfway house on South Broadway. By who, I don't know. Someone that didn't know me. I don't want anyone to know me. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis is dangerous. Top 3 for crime in USA. The halfway house was in a neighborhood that ranked in the top 5 of that top 3. Dangerous. An established track for prostitution. My new home. My only home. I'll be living with 20 other women. Their only home too. They don't want anyone to know them either. Most just released from prison. A transition point to get back on their feet. The rest, like me, nothing left, nowhere to go. I've been in a lot of tough situations, but walking in that door, looking around, all the way around, 3 times all the way around, where's the closest exit? Can I make it if I run? Walking in that door was hard or easy, nowhere else to go. I sit quietly in the big plaid armchair in the house mother's office. I sit, I sink like quicksand. Nothing left in the cushion except the hole. Miss Linda, the house mother, sits across from me, glasses low on her nose. After a once over and a towel to dry myself off, she congratulates me on getting a bed. The last one left. A trick to make you feel like you've won something when everything else is gone. Or maybe it was just the truth. Head down, the less I see, the better. Miss Linda reads me the rules and walks me upstairs. You're sharing a room with Nikki. You have 10 days to get a job. $75 a week is due after 10 days. Get a job. If I think you're high, I'm going to ask you to drop, and I'm coming in with you. Curfew is at 10 p.m. If you take a walk, make sure you have your ID. If you don't have the ID, the cops will think you're a hooker and book you. I don't have an ID, lost that too, or was it taken? I'll stay in. Don't walk at night, be careful. You can stay here for up to 2 years, but we'd like you to leave sooner. I'd like to leave sooner too. If I had anywhere else to go, I'd leave right now. Miss Linda walks me up a flight of stairs to my room. Old St. Louis stairs. The house is run down like me. Your roommate Nikki is at work. She works till 9 p.m. You'll meet her tonight, unless you're asleep. Good. I'm not in the mood to talk. I'm in the mood to die. But dying is hard. I've tried. Sleep is close enough and I'm exhausted. I crawl in my new bed. You can tell when a lot of people have slept in a bed. It has a bend, like an old raft. This one had it. I imagine all of the women that made this bed bend. Some died, some fell asleep, some will die in their sleep while I'm living here. I fall asleep, wishing for death. I stay in bed for 3 days, 3 nights, not tired, scared. Under the covers that came with the winning bed. I climb out to smoke, get pulled out to drop. Miss Linda comes in with me. You shouldn't be sleeping this much. They test me 4 times, 4 times sober. She's scared.
So this scene is so good. I mean, we feel like we're right there with you, and that you're telling us the day after it happened. I imagine this is something that is seared in your memory.
It's seared in my memory, and the whole time I lived there is seared in my memory, and it's actually really good memories.
Yeah.
It was a pretty incredible experience.
Yeah, and by the time we get to the end of the chapter, we're starting to understand that. But I think one of the great ironies of when you wash up at this place and have to find your way back to a new life is that you have to get a job, and the only place that will take you is a restaurant that has your name on it, and that we all think that you're the owner. Right? This would be one of the toughest stories I've ever heard. Somebody hitting rock bottom. Tell us how that came about and how you dealt with that. What I imagine must have been just some shame and some embarrassment of being back in that same place.
Yeah, so obviously I opened this pizzeria with my father, and my father's, you'll get to know him, was a tough guy. And so one of his things was like, okay, we can open this thing, but I'm going to own the whole thing, and you're just going to learn, and then you got to, go and figure it out on your own, and we'll cut you in eventually, but you just, obviously I was troubled and relapsing a lot, so part of it was that he didn't want to, put the business at risk or me at risk. So we open up, and then obviously I get kicked out, and they say, you've got to find a job. And so I had 10 days, and I remember I was taking the bi-state bus from South Broadway, and the bus went down Hampton, and I saw Trattoria Marcel. So I got off. I went in, and Jamie, who is wonderful, and I used to go there, I was a waitress in 20 restaurants before I opened mine up, and we would go there after work, and I went in and I said, hey, I'm kind of like going through this tough time, and you have to be very honest too, like part of the deal is you're supposed to tell the people that are hiring you that you're living in a halfway house. I was like, wow. Living in a halfway house, and he was like, but don't you own? Fair question. You own a restaurant? Are you okay? Like, a lot of red flags. So obviously, no fault in him. He wouldn't hire me. No one would hire me because it was very confusing and strange. And that, I think some people were like, what? Yeah, you can't own a restaurant and come work at my restaurant. So,
your dad took you back.
He did. Yeah.
He had some pretty strict rules. I'm laughing out loud.
So prior to that, I was in the kitchen, obviously, and was cooking and the chef there. And so when I came back, he was like, I'm not going to pay you anymore. So if you want to work here, the only way you're going to make any money is through tips. So I had to go to the front of the house and waitress, which was also very awkward and humbling. At the time, it felt shameful because I was supposedly the owner, and I'm waiting, I'm a server here. And so it was like very confusing. And I had a manager above me.
Your dad made very clear you were not the boss when you get back.
Yeah. And so, but it was very humbling. I hadn't had a car for many years, so I walked a lot of places. I took the bus. I didn't have many possessions, as you know, you'll read. And so I was pretty happy just to have anything and then go through that humbling experience of starting at the bottom of a place that you have built with others, you know, in charge of you. Yeah, it's actually pretty good for the psyche.
Your dad comes through in this book. He is such a marvelous character. And I was talking to George Mayhew, who's the dining editor. Yeah, exactly. Who knew him? And as George was describing him, I'm like, okay, she's not making any of this up. This is all true. Tell us a bit about
Well, he was amazing. He was also a recovered alcoholic addict, and had got sober when I was around 2 years old. And he also was epileptic, which I chronicle in the book, and had a lot of seizures, and because of the seizures had a lot of brain damage. And so with all of that comes some serious ups and downs and mental illness. And so, but in that, he was brilliant, and he was different than everybody because he didn't have a filter, and and he didn't have any walls up. And so people were very, very attracted to him because he was so vulnerable. So very vulnerable, told you everything about himself, and that drew a lot of people into him. And then very witty, funny, and charming as well. But he, you know, obviously had a dark side like we all do.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the chapters I've read is where you talk about working in this junk shop with him. He was a picker, is the word you use, which I imagine a lot of people here know, but probably not everybody knows.
Yeah, so he was a junk picker, I mean, salvage. Well, so he would go around North St. Louis in the beautiful old abandoned buildings, because it was the fourth largest city at the turn of the century. So a lot of incredible architecture. And he would go to these abandoned buildings and go in and take out all the doors, take out all of the fireplace manels, the building stars, the iron building stars, and he would salvage all of that. And my brothers and I grew up going with him a lot of times because my parents were divorced. And so when we were with him, he didn't have, you know, anyone to watch us. So we'd be in the back seat and we'd go on these picks, and the pickers would meet him and they'd load the top of the car with doors, and we'd just wait in the back and then get home, and the doors would be moved into our living room where we all just kind of like lived in this house filled with bricks and doors and mantles and iron, and that was our furniture. It was very interesting.
I feel like this is, you know, sort of half of you, and you have this sort of fascinating, you know, he's living this hard scramble life, and this is part of your heritage. And then the other thing that is maybe this formative experience is that when you were very young, you got to travel to Italy because your mother was there, and she was there with this college program.
Yeah.
You had this great analogy about how you were kind of a coyote thrust into the middle of some puppy dogs. You had this sort of feral drama. Gets to sort of glom onto this program. But Italy was such a formative experience for you.
Yeah. It was huge. And so I've been kind of running around, dropped out, working in restaurants, troubled, and but also, let's go back to like growing up. I had my father as the picker, and then I had my mother as this incredible fine artist. So I also got to grow up in artist studios. So Andy Milner's studio, Gary Passanisi, all of these incredible artists from St. Louis. I grew up in their studios with my mother, and she's incredible. So that was also a unique experience, but a really beautiful one. So yeah, I'm troubled. I'm working in all of these restaurants around here, Ducks, Bell Bands, and so we managed running the streets. And she had gotten this job at Washington University to run the study abroad program in Florence, Italy. And I'd never been overseas. I'd never done anything like that. And so I saved up some money and bought a ticket and flew to Italy and lived with her in her apartment. Yeah.
And reading your chapter about Italy, it's so beautiful, and you can just sort of see where Katie's came from.
Yeah.
Do you think you would be doing what you're doing today had it not been for that experience in Italy?
No, I don't think I'd be doing, it's a lot of experiences coming together, and there's probably 3 to 5 big ones that really formed today, and living there was one, absolutely. Yeah.
What was it about Italy that just resonated with your soul?
Well, Italians, food is, it is the soul. So it's everything to them. It's their history, it's their heritage. It's each family has its own recipe, and then that ripples out into the block and the city and the region, and it's all very centered around these very specific ingredients and recipes. And yeah, it's just a lot of love and soul in food, and it's the most important thing in that country. So you really feel it in everything, and it can overtake you. And so it definitely overtook me, and thought, well, I've worked in a lot of restaurants. I have, this aunt that has had a wonderful career. So I have this mentor that I look up to, and I think I could probably do that, but I don't necessarily know how to cook. So if I can just figure out how to roll out pizza dough, I can put all these beautiful ingredients on top. It's the simplest way for me to figure out cooking and get in restaurants. Yeah.
And reading the chapter on Italy, it feels like Italy came very close to saving you from this road that you were on, and yet it didn't.
Yeah.
You had to have that point of getting back bottom to get where you got. And I think that's why the story begins where it begins. But you're so young. You had this restaurant that even if maybe the critics weren't always kind to it, it was buzzy. Everybody knew this was the place for great pizza, good looking pizza. It was famous for that. Where did that go wrong?
Oh gosh. A lot of dysfunction, but dysfunction is kind of beautiful, especially nostalgically when you look back. But it was just one of those places that had so many interesting, dysfunctional people all together feeding off of each other that I think the public came in and just couldn't believe it was all happening. You had to walk through the cigarette smoke to get in the door, and we just were fearless, all of us, all of the people there, and you kind of attract the same sort of group. And so those women that worked with me and that team is still very dear to me. Yeah.
So this was a restaurant that had a lot of buzz, a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where the substance abuse that really almost took over.
Yeah.
So for you, we come into this book seeing you hit rock bottom. And so many people hit rock bottom and they can't find their way back out.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the secret was for you? How was it that you were able to get to pull out of this moment that could have gone either way?
I think it's seriously just a miracle, because obviously I struggled for 6 or 7 years in and out of hospitals and treatment centers, and saw thousands of people struggling. And it's a horrible disease, and the success rate is low. So anytime that anyone can break through, I just think it's kind of a miracle. But obviously my mother, and you read about it in this, had a pivotal role in that. And she did the hardest thing that you can do, which you're supposed to do, but it's very hard for parents and loved ones to do, which is disconnect from the addict and say, you got to figure it out on your own. And so my father had done that, and that was fine because that was his MO. But when mom finally did it, I'd lost everyone but mom always. I always had mom. So when I finally lost that, it just clicked with me that, I've got to figure this out. Yeah.
And I should mention, I know your mom is here tonight. So this obviously worked out. Like you guys are, you found your way back to each other. Was there a time when it was hard to understand that decision?
Never. No.
You knew.
Never. No.
You knew she had to do that.
I tortured everybody.
Yeah.
It was torturous. And also she was, that's what she did was what you're supposed to do. That's how you save an addict's life. So she did the bravest thing that you can do. So then there was never a moment where I was like, no, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's great. So were you ever thinking, okay, I'm not gonna do restaurants again? Restaurants are a hard place to be sober.
Yeah.
Such as, I'm somewhat joking in that question, but you know, there's alcohol. If you have alcohol, were you worried this could be a trigger for you to be back?
Well, it had been for many years, and obviously I was probably gravitated towards the industry because of the culture. But I'm just under the belief that everything's a trigger. You know, life's pretty hard, and we can go anywhere to get a drink. And I don't know which chapter it's in. If it's in this one, is it in this one? Where literally there was a moment where I said, could you just lock all of my shoes in the closet? Because I don't want to drink, but I can't stop. So maybe if you lock all my shoes in the closet, I'm not going to drink. Then you figure out a way to go drink without shoes on, right? So my point is, you always find a way. The issue is when you're ready. So when you're ready and you're done, and whatever happens, I can't explain it. Then you can do anything and be anywhere. Yeah.
And you began to speak out about your story a few years ago, and
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of touched off more people in the St. Louis restaurant industry talking about, you know, the somewhat problematic culture, that it's too hard to be sober in restaurants. Did you go out wanting to start that conversation? Or was that just a byproduct from telling your own story?
Yeah, I think just a byproduct. Yeah. And then again, like I feel like restaurants are beautiful, wonderful places to be in. There's lots of like incredible characters and that teach you a lot. So I don't necessarily think restaurants, are the problem, but maybe just some of the things that the behaviors of the shift drink and the after work, everyone going out. Yeah.
Well, and I also think of, you know, here you are 15, 16 years old and you're getting wasted at work.
Yeah.
You know, you found a way to do that. And I know people can always find a way to do that in their workplaces. But it doesn't seem like that was so much of a workplace problem sometimes. It was, you could manage to sort of
Right.
save on
Yeah.
that.
It's not that it's not anyone's fault, but
Sure.
the addicts. So yeah.
So as you're sort of processing this journey and this journey of going from having a restaurant, losing a restaurant, to coming back and now having 3 wonderful restaurants, when you look back on that road, what is it that you hope that people who are reading your story, that they're going to learn from that they're going to take from it?
I think just the hope that you can. I know I've been in those places where you think I'm never going to be able to figure this life out or overcome what I'm going to overcome, and there's just to have hope that there is a way to do it, and there's an opportunity, and it's just ultimately about taking the steps.
And you've stressed that for you, it wasn't just you taking the steps, that there was this whole community around you. This is something that's important to you in this book. Talk about not just your family, but St. Louis as a whole.
Yeah.
What role they played in this journey for you?
Well, I mean, I built these restaurants and I had this team around me that maybe I didn't understand how to navigate in the beginning. COVID really was instrumental, and having my daughter was instrumental in realizing that when you're not able to do everything, like when you have a baby and you can't do everything anymore, or COVID happens and you need everyone to pitch in to like survive, you start to realize how important the team and the city is around you. And I mean, I did a Kickstarter campaign and the community rallied around that. My restaurants have always been very busy, so I've gotten a lot of support that way. But I think those tough times in life when you can't control everything and then you look around and realize there's a lot of people that can help and support you, and then you start to really be grateful for them.
Yeah. And the pandemic wasn't just critical in terms of you coming to that realization. It was also, you had to deal with the death of 2 different people that were very important to you. And it seems like sort of processing that led to this project.
Yeah.
Tell us how that came about.
So March 4th, 2020, Rolando passed away in my arms, in my mother's arms, in the ICU. And then a few weeks later, they shut down the country.
And Rolando, we should back up for this. We
Yeah.
haven't had the
Oh, I'm
chance to
sorry.
read it yet. This is
Yeah.
a seminal person for you.
Yeah, so I would say the three most important people in my life are my mother, my father, Rolando, and of course Nadia, but the three important adults. And so I met Rolando when I was 10. He was working for my aunt as a dishwasher. And then I worked with him at Zoe Pan-Asia over here. And then we worked at a few other restaurants together. And then when I opened the junk store with my father, he came and worked with my father and I, and then followed. Basically, we've kind of followed each other for, 20, 30 years. And had this incredible love and connection with each other. He was a Cuban exile and didn't speak any English, but we communicated perfectly. And I don't speak any Spanish. But just spending that much time with someone over that many years, everything is kind of in a loop and a pattern, and you sort of start to figure out the 5 basic things that we all need. So yeah, so he was very important to me, and he passed away in my arms. And then a year later, my father passed away, and he was very ill for many years. And so I lost both of them very quickly together while going through COVID and having a newborn. And I was in an incredible amount of grief, especially when my father passed. Incredible. And just kind of put my coat on and walked outside, literally right after, I found out that he had passed, and walked for about a year in the woods and had this incredible experience where I was searching for him, searching for Rolando, really, like kind of in a weird, like, where are they? Where did they go? What does this all mean? And in that process, started to figure out who I was. And for the first time, had this awareness of who I was and what this all means, and that we're all very, very, very connected. And so the mourning process was really beautiful for me, because it was the first time I got over a lot of insecurity and fear. I just became very confident in the person that I was, and I'd never had that confidence before. And so I was writing a lot and started to write as this confident person. And yeah,
And that's what led to
that's
it.
what led to this.
And you mentioned you were sort of searching for that as you were out in the woods in your own
Yeah.
thoughts. Do you feel like you were able to find that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was a really cool experience, and found them. I feel like I really, figured out that everything kind of keeps going, and that the connection never ends. And so it became very comforting to me. And I lost a lot of fear in all of the things that we fear, just because I know that this is just a small piece of the puzzle, right?
And with getting to write about both of them and doing so vividly, is that a way of also still getting to have them here?
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like they're part of the process. I really do. And that also helps me. It's been a great part of the mourning process. Yeah.
So I'm going to have you read a second passage from your book here. And I also want to make sure we're saving some time for some questions. So we'll have Katie read just a little more. I may just steal in 1 or 2 more questions, and then I'm going to kick it to you guys. So start thinking about what you want to make sure.
So this is from the next chapter. So you guys are the first to hear. So chapter 2, I think I titled it Dropped In, Dropped Out. I'm just gonna read a short part of it. But I don't remember dropping out of high school at 15 being an issue. Let's not make it one. There were no tears. In fact, I'd call it a positive. It might be the best decision anyone ever made for me. And by anyone, I mean myself, my parents, the principal, 4 or 5 teachers, and maybe a parent or 10. If I had to give an Oscar speech and thanks, they'd be pulling me off stage for time. My trajectory walked through the right door. The butterfly was stepped on, fork in the road taken. Here goes my parenting advice on school versus life. This advice comes with a warning and a disclaimer. If your kid is doing great, skip to the next, or read for laughs. Only for the brave parent with a fucked up kid like me. Everything will work out, but be warned, it ain't easy for about 15 years. About as long as it takes to get your high school diploma, college degree, a master's, and maybe a PhD. Coincidental? Cheaper. The decision to drop out was made by that nice group of people in a nice easy raft floating downstream, metaphorically. Rafts are relaxing, disarming. Water level is just below high. One more rain. Current is strong enough that no one needs to row. Float, sunny. She won't suspect a thing. Let's drop her off when we hit a bank. Any bank will do. Leave her a cooler? No, the woods have enough. A kiss and a push and a wave. Everyone floats back down the river. Everyone but me, relaxed and happy round the bend, out of sight, relief. I'm on the bank. No one warned me, so nothing to fear. It all starts at 13 years old, 8th grade. I was 3 years on the other side of my parents' divorce. Enough time for it to sink in and mix with the hormones. I need a drink and a smoke. Did they leave me any matches? They did.
So I love that excerpt too. And I think part of what makes that one so good is you can see some of the humor in this book. Were there parts when you're going back looking at your life and you just had to laugh?
Oh yeah. I think it's funny, some people are still mad about it.
So F. Scott Fitzgerald had a famous quote about how there are no second acts in American life and saying that America doesn't give people a second chance. And I think your life is testament that there are second acts. There can be extraordinary second acts. And yet reading this draft this past week, I find myself wondering if you're heading into a third act as an author. I mean, I think this book could be huge. Do you find yourself thinking about that?
Well, I can tell you that I had a really good time writing it. It was very hard. I mean, obviously there's a lot in there, and there were moments of fear about revealing, so much, or, just reliving some of the stuff. So, but I will tell you, overall, I think it's creatively and fulfillment-wise, the best thing that I've ever done. Mm-hmm. So just to be able to, if I get the opportunity to continue to be able to do that, that would be really cool. I think I found my thing, my creative thing that really, my mother obviously has it. And so the restaurants are incredible and amazing and a wonderful creative outlet, but this is something more similar to what my mother did. And I see why she's so passionate about it. Yeah.
I love that. And I think there's going to be a bidding war for this book. I really do.
So.
Yeah. So you're here on the ground floor. You're here at the launch. And I do want to get some of your questions. I'm not sure how we do this with the fancy mics. Do I have to take mine off? How should we do that? Chris, any questions?
Just please project.
Project.
And
Yeah.
maybe repeat the question
Yes.
because it usually projects this way, not that way.
So make sure I can hear your question, and then I'll try to repeat it so everyone else can hear it. Who would like to have a question for Kate? Yeah, you there.
I'm curious about your brothers.
Yeah.
How did you intersect with them? I have 3 daughters, and it's always very interesting how they relate to one another.
Yeah.
And tell me about your brothers.
So Dick Weiss, who's a great journalist and a great writer himself, as well as a great editor, is curious to hear about Katie's brothers.
Well, today we are all very close, and my brothers are also sober. So my parents bat 1,000 on that one. When I was probably the most out there with my addiction, and so it was, I think, very traumatizing for them. I remember when I got hired back at the halfway house, my brothers were working there, and they quit that same day. We're not dealing with this one again. So we went through many experiences like that with our collective addictions, trying to figure out where we all fit together. But my brother Johnny works with me, and my brother Tommy. My brother Tommy is in Austin, and he helps with my frozen business, pizza business. And then my brother Johnny is my operator with me for all of the restaurants. So very close, and all very grateful that we all are sober. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I can't imagine working with all my siblings. That's why. I saw another hand right after I saw this. That you, yeah?
Yeah, the architectural salvage part is so interesting to me. I like, did that help like with you in some specific way in life? I'm thinking like just the visionary looking at it and what could this be? And what would I do with this? Or what role did it play?
So the question is about the architectural salvaging that her father was so good at. Did this play a role in informing you or your future business?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that pieces of things are really beautiful. And I think, so I can look at a piece of something and think it's more beautiful than the whole thing put together. And they're almost like sculptural to me. And so, I don't know. I mean, you can tell in my restaurants that they're pretty bare and that they have like a lot of exposed things to them. And so I think that is probably part of the architectural salvage experience, and then also the artist studios. That same feeling of these, things that are kind of falling apart a little bit. What else? No, I just think it was very interesting. More importantly, just watching him interact and do deals was really with pickers. So it was fascinating, and it was like you were in a Martin Scorsese movie.
I love the chapter where you're driving around with your dad. We're kind of circling through time, ride after ride with him, and he's going around scouting these houses and picking from some of the houses, wants to flip some of the houses.
He had a lot of plans, and he had this belief that he could. Maybe this is where my success comes from, was with all of his disability and addiction, and his childhood was had the things that we all have. He always had this. I think some people thought it was a delusional thing, but he thought that he could do anything and be anybody, and really believed it to his core, and came up with all of these ideas and plans to do all of these wonderful things, and really believed it so much that I think it just taught us that that's all you need, right? Yeah.
That chutzpah.
Yeah.
Irish chutzpah. I don't know whatever it is.
We have a question over here.
I'm gonna stand because I haven't even been able to see you the whole time I hear you. I haven't been able to see. Sono Italiano. My father was born and raised in Italy, and so I understand the love of Italy. I spent 3 months there myself. I watched your Instagram story over the summer where you were eating 3 dinners in Italy. And I was wondering if you were doing a lot of your writing when you were there.
Yes.
And did you pick up a lot of menu items and menu ideas there and incorporate them into the new Katie, into Katie's and Butler's Village or anything different here?
Yeah, no, I did a lot of writing there. I went by myself and wrote almost the whole time. It was really beautiful. But yes, every time I go, very inspiring. And I am noodling around with an idea for a Florentine specific restaurant. Yeah, yeah. So that trip was very inspiring.
So follow up with that. So obviously you're amazing and iconic, but you can tell in your writings in this is comes with passion. And that's very rare, I think, in a lot of books nowadays. So when you're writing this, and I mean, kudos to you taking your time and taking your efforts in Italy and whatnot, but you can really, it comes out as a passion in your writings right here. So there's no problem.
Oh, thank you.
That was not a question, but a compliment. Just so much passion. Yes.
We've got
Hi, how you doing? First, thank you for the meeting. But I was wondering, going back to the woods, when you said you were walking to the woods looking for your father, was you looking for mentally and spiritually? That's what you be doing, or to find peace within yourself.
I went to look for them spiritually and kind of, I was almost in a delusional way, searching for them, their spirit, or some signs, right, that they were still there. But then when I was in the woods, as we all know, you start to see life unfold in front of you, literally, and you start to realize what you really are, which is all of the things that you're walking through and how it's all connected. And it brought me a lot of clarity and peace, just seeing the woods interact with not only itself, but me. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm fresh into the recovery. So, but I'm finding peace within myself.
Yeah.
So when like people say, how you doing it? Then most of the time I just say I'm peaceful.
Yeah.
You know, so I was just wondering whether more of a spiritual peace or mental.
Yeah. Spiritual, and peace. Yeah, I found a lot of peace within myself. The woods, I think they balance us out quite a bit. Yeah. Thank you. Congratulations.
Question here, did you?
Okay, I'm just standing up, I'm calling you. Because I've been leaning over to see you. So I'm not telling you what you don't know. The restaurant business is super hard and many fail. And despite like you didn't go to college, you didn't go to restaurant school.
Yes, they did.
Well, you lived it every day. You earned it by living it. So I guess my question is like, how you've made some really gutsy moves, like during COVID when you went into making pizza and frozen things, and now I understand you're going to be going into Walmart stores or maybe things like that. So that's very gutsy. It's very courageous. Like, how did you find that path and that direction? Was it just by working in the restaurant? Do you have others that are mentors to you? How did you get to where you are with your business?
It's mostly my family, and then there's a core group of people that worked for me for about 10 years. Chef Jake, who I post a lot about. But I don't know if it's like gutsy or it's just, I feel like we're always in survival mode. And so you just do whatever it takes, and you don't, so rather than have like this big plan of here's where we're gonna be and here's how much money we're gonna make and here, like all of these, we just are kind of trying to be the best we can the next day. And that's really the philosophy. I don't know, get better each day and survive.
Yeah. And from there, you've been able to grow and have that.
It's not as complicated or over-planned as maybe some other business owners might operate. Yeah.
It's interesting when you and I first started talking about this book, you said, well, it's not really a business book. And I didn't see why. You just reduced it down to one paragraph.
There isn't a huge, strategy.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more. Yeah.
My assistant's laughing at me back there. That's what I'm talking about.
In each of your restaurants, you have kind of this iconic projection of the movies.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Scorsese. I didn't know. How do you pick your movies? And then a follow-up question is, how do you pick the charities that you decide to?
So he's wondering how she picks the movies that are projected in each of her restaurants and also the charities.
So right when I was opening Katie's Pizzeria, I was dating a director, and he got me into film, and we just decided that that would be a cool visual. So the point of the movies being projected is not to watch a film, it's like moving art. And so we decided to choose movies that were visually very interesting and stunning, and those happen to be a lot of French and Italian films. So that's kind of what we did. And so it's not about like watching a movie and sitting and having dinner and, watching this thing unfold. It's more about this visual art piece that's moving across the walls. And then, and art and music and obviously are very important in the whole fabric of the restaurant. And then the charities we choose are specific to St. Louis. We like to do a lot of St. Louis charities. Obviously, we do a lot of stuff around recovery, things with children, homelessness, and the most important stuff in our city. So supporting the city.
Thank you.
I saw you in the very back there. Did you have a question too?
Oh, I'm the assistant.
Maybe you have a question.
Follow-up question, favorite movie?
Ooh. You know, I'm gonna be sentimental here, and I just watched it again for the first time. But well, can I do two?
You can do two.
I'm just really still, you know, my father and I. The funniest part about his brain damage was that they had removed his hippocampus, so he couldn't remember things very much. So we would, as children, have to watch the same movie over and over again. And it would kind of be like the first time for him. The two movies that were always playing and are wonderful are, and this is the season, It's a Wonderful Life and Field of Dreams. So those were the two movies, so those are probably my favorite.
Oh. Well,
Great.
can I wrap this up?
Yeah. So I guess I do just want to close before we get to the next part here, to say that this is just the first chapter, and Katie has a whole bunch more chapters, and so they may be shaped and changed by their reaction to this one. But your plan is to start rolling them out in January.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if people want to keep reading this, where's the best place for them to keep an eye out for what's to come?
Oh, Left A Book.
The bookstore.
So Chris, you'll continue to
That's
have.
the only place
If
that
she'll-
And you're not sure of the frequency, but just keep an eye out in January.
Yeah, I think we'll do them once a month.
Okay.
So just like everything else, we're gonna feel it all out. You guys want them quicker, we'll make them quicker.
So I know there's
Yeah.
some plan for signing and all that.
Turn it over to.
Let's give another
Mess here.
round of applause for And everyone should have a book. If you have not checked in, you can do so at the desk. We do have additional copies available for sale. So if you're like, oh, my friend would really love one of those, it is the holiday season. And I wanted to remind you all that it is Giving Tuesday. So if you were interested in giving a donation to the Left Bank Books Foundation, I would be more than willing to help.
And explain this.
So Katie is going to come with me, and we're going to do the signing right out here across from the desk. So just in an orderly fashion, or just chaotically, however you want to do it. But feel free to grab some additional pizza, shop around, and have a good time. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight.
I don't like this spot. I feel like I'm like. Yeah.
How you good? How you doing? Man?
I think this is I'd love to go to. Oh, are you Susan? No. Oh, how funny. What? Cheers. He's like, cheers. He's like, that's fine. Bye. Maybe it's something that and then back by the seat. Did you want your pocket to be personal?
Don't do that. ERIC.
On your copy. He's coming in there.